As they climbed out of the rail car one by one, Tiana was grateful for the cover provided by the weeds that lined the railroad tracks. Their group quickly created distance between themselves and the train, making their way to the dirt road that ran parallel to the tracks. "What now?" Charlotte asked. "No use standing around," Tiana said. "Let's get walking." "How much farther do you think we have to go, John?" The driver squinted as he looked out in the distance. "I can't be sure, but I believe we're near the old paper mill, which means the port is another 10 miles or so." 10 miles? Charlotte moaned. "I can't walk 10 miles in these shoes." "I have an idea," Naveen said. He knelt on one knee and opened the smaller of his two suitcases. He pulled out a pair of woolen men's stockings, the fancy kind, like the ones Tiana saw in the Sears, Roebuck & Co. catalog. "These are thick enough to protect your feet." He handed the stockings and garters to Charlotte. "Just try not to step on any sharp rocks." "Why, Prince Naveen, that is a wonderful idea," Charlotte gushed. "You're so smart and considerate." "Let's get these on so we can get moving," Tiana said. She helped Charlotte with the stockings as Naveen and John turned their backs for the sake of propriety. That was a smart idea, Tiana told Naveen, "and generous. These stockings won't be worthy of being used as cleaning rags by the fine Lottie is done with them." I have plenty more at home." He frowned at the mention of home. Tucking the smaller bag under his arm, Naveen gripped the handle on the other, and as a group, they started walking east. Tiana stole several glances at his profile before asking, "You're having trouble with the idea of going back, aren't you?" "What?" "Home. You don't want to go home. I could see it on your face." "My family needs me," he answered. "Are you sure there isn't anyone in Maldonia who can help?" "Your situation?" she asked cautiously. He turned to look at her. "It seems my father has taken ill. I do not know yet how bad it is." His voice cracked a little. "Oh, I am so sorry," Tiana said, her heart sinking. She felt foolish for her suggestion. She knew the weight of losing a father. If she'd had a chance to spend more time with him, to help him, or even just time to say goodbye, she would have jumped on it. "I am his son, and I am next in line for the throne," Naveen continued. "It is my responsibility to be there and help with whatever may come next. Besides, I do not want to disappoint my family again." They marched on for several more minutes before Tiana said, "I know we only met a couple hours ago, but as far as I could tell, you're a great son, Naveen. Not many people would try so hard to make that long journey back across the Atlantic so soon after arriving in America. Don't be so hard on yourself." A charming smile spread across his lips. "Thank you for saying that." She returned his smile. "I could tell you needed to hear it. But you are right. As much as I love to hear that, about what specifically?" Tiana asked with a smile. "I would have really liked to stay." Tiana's heart started to pick up its pace. Tia?" Charlotte called from behind. "Can I see you for a minute?" Tiana shot an apologetic look to Naveen, though part of her was relieved at Lottie's interruption. What was she doing? The prince was about to get on a ship, and she'd probably never see him again. "What's wrong, Lottie?" Tiana asked as she backtracked, coming up alongside Charlotte. She would hear John and Naveen talking about the humid weather. "Is it your feet?" "No, it's you and the prince," Charlotte murmured in a hushed tone, a cagey grin turning up the corners of her lips. "You're not one to notice these things, but he's been making sweet eyes at you since we left New Orleans, and now the two of you are chatting and smiling at each other like a couple of lovebirds. You should go for him." "Lottie!" Tiana said in a scandalous whisper. "I am not smiling at him. At least I didn't mean to," Tiana corrected, when she realized she had been smiling at Naveen. "And weren't you determined to marry the man just this morning?" Charlotte waved her off. "I can find myself another prince. There's bound to be one out there for me. What I see happening between the two of you is true love. Who am I to get in the way of that? Tiana rolled her eyes. Lottie believed in silly things such as love at first sight. Tiana didn't have time for any of that. So why did she feel bereft at the thought of never seeing Naveen again once they reached Mobile Bay? Maybe because she'd had more fun today than she had in ages. And maybe because she could see a big heart beneath all the bravado. Just a few hours before, all she could think about was getting her job back at Duke's to save her future. But the day had taught her the importance of enjoying the present as well. There was room for both. Is that the port? Charlotte asked. Tiana looked ahead, and it sure enough looked like the port. I think it is, Lottie. They all picked up the pace, reaching the port within minutes. I guess I overestimated how far off we were, John said. We made it, Naveen breathed. Now to find the... There it is! He pointed a gargantuan luxury liner parked at the dock. Let's find the ticketing agent, Tiana said. First we must find the telegraph desk, he countered. I'll need money for both the passage home and what I owe you. He took her hands in his and gave them a firm squeeze. I can never repay you for what you've done. Actually, you can, Tiana said with a cheeky grin. Well, yes, I can, and will pay you with money, he said. But you have given me something more than money can buy. I know what I want to do with my life. And now I will have the confidence to tell my family when the time is right. That is priceless. Sire! Sire! Prince Naveen! They all whipped around at the sound of someone calling the prince's name. Lawrence? Naveen's forehead furrowed with confusion. What are you doing here? And how did you get here before I did? I hired a car to drive me, the valet said. Let me guess, Charlotte said. Your car didn't break down on you and leave you to hitch a ride on the rail car? Lawrence looked back and forth between Naveen and Charlotte. What is she talking about? Never mind that, Naveen said. What are you doing here? Oh, sire, I had to get you before you left on the boat. Back to Maldonia. You don't have to go. What? Your father is just fine. There was a misunderstanding at the port back in New Orleans. It turns out the telegram you were given was meant for the Prince of Spain, not you. Naveen sucked in a gasp. My father is well? Lawrence nodded. Yes, he is. He wrung his hands. I fear I was a bit harsh back in New Orleans, Lawrence continued. I'm sorry for not reading the telegram when you asked me to. I could have spared you this excursion. Naveen looked at Tiana and smiled. It was not so bad. Actually, I had a pretty good time with my new friends. Charlotte cheered and then announced she and John would search for a quicker way home. I'm quite happy you enjoyed yourself, sire, Lawrence said. But I regret some of the things I said to you. Recent, events have reminded me what an honor it's been to have worked with your family all these years. I do hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Yes, of course I forgive you, Lawrence. Naveen clapped a hand on his shoulder. But you were right. It's time I take care of myself. I have relied on others to do everything for me for far too long. Please go on. Pursue your new interests. Naveen turned to Tiana, not seeing his former valet's bewildered expression. For better or worse, it seemed the valet had gotten the freedom he'd asked for. I have been thinking, Naveen said. Will that restaurant you plan on opening need a house band? Tiana thought for a moment. Then she returned his grin. You give me a few months to open up my restaurant and you've got yourself a job. She held out her hand and he took it. A promise for now and for the future. At that moment, Charlotte and John approached. We found a car for hire. We'll get us back to Big Daddy's car and then Charlotte started. Then she saw Tiana's and Naveen's still clasped hands. She squealed, On second thought, the car can wait. Let's get back to the party. We've got some celebrating to do. And that's the end of Gonna Take You There. Thank you for joining me, and I hope I get to see you again soon. Bye! Bye. See you real soon.